One of the bigger surprise hits of the summer is Longlegs. It is a horror, thriller, murder mystery starring Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe, and it's getting a lot of buzz this summer. I'm going to let you know my thoughts on the movie. Writer and director Osgood Perkins brings a very specific tone to the film. It always feels uneasy and unsettling, and a lot of that is aided by Nicolas Cage's supporting performance as Longlegs. And what I like about the movie is it doesn't really show him very clearly until about halfway through the movie. It kind of keeps that hidden, and then when you finally see him, you could just really embrace the unhinged aspects of his performance. And that's what Nick Cage is known for, is these crazy, wild, over-the-top performances. And for a while, he kind of lost respect, I guess, from the industry because of bad movies and the performances being way too much and ruining movies. But over the last 5 to 10 years, he's really reestablished himself as a serious dramatic actor, also a great comedic actor as well. And I think that Nicolas Cage gives probably the best supporting performance all year so far. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was terrifying. One scene in particular, about midway through the film, I think is where it really all came together for me in his performance. Terrifying stuff. He's very over the top, like usual, very scary. He has a lot of makeup on, some prosthetics with his face in particular. His role in the movie really comes together in a meaningful way, I think, in how he connects to the main character's life and how the psychology of her character is kind of connected to him. It's really interesting. Yeah, and the way that he's able to bring that intensity to his role, it's just almost like a quiet intensity until it explodes. Some people might be critical of it and think it's too over the top and doesn't work for them. I understand you if you believe that, but for me, the performance worked, and I think it's one of the best supporting performances all year. His counterpart, who is played by Micah Monroe, who is actually the main character, she plays a detective from the FBI, and she seemingly has some psychic capabilities. And eventually you learn the reason behind that, and the plot kind of unfolds in a way that is pretty gradual. You start to put the pieces together. I don't think it's perfectly paced. I think there are some storytelling elements that don't really work. I've heard some people say the movie kind of reveals too much of itself. It explains too much of itself. And I don't really know if the lead performance does the movie any favors. I think she's really stoic and subtle, but I don't really think a lot of the subtleties even really come out. I don't know. To me, it was not like she's a bad actress, but I just don't know if her take on that performance, whether it's how she's directed or written or just her interpretation of her character, it just didn't seem like it was really compelling or motivating, the story. I thought it was pretty dull. I'm not trying to knock her. I just didn't agree with her interpretation of the character overall, and it definitely just made every moment that Nick Cage was on the screen that much better in a weird way, because you're wanting to see more of him. But yeah, I don't know. Not that I have a problem with stoic performances. They're all over my favorite movies of all time. Dune 2 came out this year. It had a lot of stoic performances, but I think it's how does that serve the story? And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of interesting things happening to her from within, and it's just not really coming out emotionally from her. So I don't know. It didn't really work for me, despite Nick Cage's excellent performance. One of the main reasons why I think the film feels really unsettling is because of its photography. There's a lot of wide angle shots in the way that the characters are blocked amidst the production design. And I think the production design here is excellent. I know there's kind of this thing going on where it's production design doesn't really get recognition unless it's a historical epic with humongous sets and everything. This is a contemporary movie with just regular old houses, but the way that the interiors are designed, the wooden, 1990s style hallways and, the kitchens, everything with these interiors assisted by kind of a more dull kind of camera frame. It's kind of like an indie horror, so you kind of see that style, like that color palette, I guess, in a lot of these indie horror movies where it's kind of dull, muted colors. But when in this movie, it mixed that with, I think, really like excellent production design, and the cinematography in terms of like the shot, you know, and the composition of the shots. All of that worked together to be kind of terrifying. There's one scene in particular where it's just showing a wide angle of the main character who's like doing detective work, and there's kind of just like no sound, but you can see a room in the back. And this, I think it's like an unbroken shot maybe for like a couple minutes. Maybe it is broken up or something, but whenever it returns to that composition, like that camera shot, that back room is always in frame, and you're just like staring at the back room like something's going to come out of there. Nothing really does in that scene, but it still evokes that horror and terror. And that was probably, I think, the best scene in the movie, in my opinion. But there's kind of a lot of that, and I'm just a sucker for a good like wide angle shot anyway. So I think this movie kind of checked that box for me visually. Also, I think an underrated things in horror movies and movies in general really is like the editing, where they choose to switch the shot, when they choose to switch the frame, you know, to advance the story or advance the scene. In horror, it's a very, very vital aspect. Like, how are you going to reveal the scares and the thrills? And this movie like keeps you guessing. I think it does a good job of transitioning shot to shot. And I think it serves the story well. I think it serves the eerie tone really well. So, well edited movie. As far as plot, story, nitpicks, I noticed some like plot conveniences, little nitpicks here and there. I don't want to like go into spoilers to talk about them too much. But yeah, it just seems like every character in the movie, even if they don't seem like they matter to like the main character's story, somehow plays into it. In ways that I'm like, I didn't really need that. You know, I don't know. But there just kind of seemed like a bunch of plot conveniences that didn't really work for me. But again, it didn't really ruin the overall experience. Just maybe worth mentioning. Overall, I will give this a recommendation to go see. One of the best horror movies I've seen in a while. It's scary for sure. You're gonna get scared probably. It's not like the most scary movie ever, but it's definitely got that. It's always feels tense. You can't really take a scene off. You know, it's just like you're always have that kind of feeling of dread in the back of your mind. But yeah, overall, would recommend going to see it. I'm gonna give this one a 7.25 out of 10.